Hey, what's going on guys, TurtyWurty here, and welcome back to part 3 of the 1.17 Forge modding tutorials for Minecraft. Now, in this tutorial we are just going to make a very simple block, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, the first thing we need to go ahead and do is create our block initialization class. So I'm going to call this block init to stick with the theme. However, obviously mod blocks or tutorial mod blocks is perfectly fine too. Here we go. And let's create the deferred register exactly like we did with items. So public static final deferred register. That takes in block, and we'll call this blocks. That is just equal to deferred register dot create forge registries dot blocks, and then obviously our mod ID, which is tutorial mod id. Okay, let's just import block from net.minecraft.world.level.block.block. You need to make sure you import the right block here. There are quite a few, so it is this top one. There we go. Let's also just real quick make this class final and give it a private constructor. Not that we are ever going to instantiate it anyways. So then let's come down here and we can now create the registry object. So public static final registry objects, and that will be of a block. And we can just call this example underscore block is equal to blocks dot register example underscore block, and that is just a supplier of a new block. And once this wants to load, there we go. Okay, now this just takes a block properties. However, it's slightly different from items. So to make a block properties, we actually need to use abstract block dot properties dot. Is that not right? Has that changed again? Maybe it's changed again. Let's see if properties wants to come up. Here we go. So where is properties? Not that properties, wrong one. Okay, let's see properties. So here we go, block behavior. Right, so it's block behavior. Did I spell that right? No, behave. Yeah, I'm so bad at spelling. Okay, that's correct. Block behavior dot properties, and then dot of. And here you can pass in a material and a material color, or you can copy it from an existing block. So let's say you wanted to copy it. We'll go through that first. You can simply just use blocks, which is the vanilla block init class, blocks, and then all the different blocks are here. So you could just choose one, brick stairs for example, and boom, your block now has the properties of brick stairs. And you can still modify this, so you can still do dot, and then you can still do any of these functions that you wish to do. So that is the copy method. And now we'll go through of, if Eclipse wants to stop doing this. It's really annoying. Okay, let's put it on a new line manually then. Okay, let's say we want to use of. We can pass in a material. So material dot. And this will basically change the sounds, I believe. It changes a few things, but basically just put the one that's most similar to what your block is. Look, Skulk is even in here. Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. But yeah, you can just put whatever you want. So I'm going to put just stone. And then you can also pass in a material color. So if you do that, you can then see the different material colors that you can do. So material color, and you'll see all of these different colors. So this is basically for the map colors, I believe, pretty sure. So I'm going to put pretty much the color of my block, which is, I guess the closest one is terracotta blue. It's probably the closest. Okay, and then after that we can do a bunch of different properties. So we can set, for example, the strength, and this is basically the hardness and the resistance of the block. So the best way to figure out what these values should be is simply just to look at vanilla. So let's, in Eclipse you can do Control-Shift-T, and in IntelliJ that is 4 shifts, so you just shift 4 times, but Eclipse it is Control-Shift-T, and then you just type the name of the class that you want to view. So I want to view the blocks class. And once that loads, we can now see a bunch of blocks, obviously all the blocks. So I want to look for stone. So I'm just going to search stone. Is there a lot of stones? There is a lot of stones. Okay, let's search in that case for block and then stone. And that should find us the actual stone field. Oh, it's right at the top. Of course it is. And you can see here the strength. So the hardness is 1.5 and the resistance is 6.0. So for the strength, I'm going to put 2.0, and for the resistance I'm going to put 15. And yeah, you should basically just base that off of what vanilla uses. You can fairly easily grab that. And then I'm also going to use this requires correct tool for drops. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that and paste it in. That basically means you have to have the correct tool in order to mine this block and obtain the loot table. And then after that you can do any of these properties that you want to do. So let's say you wanted it to be slippery. You can simply do friction, and you could go 0.5 for example. And yeah, obviously there are tons of properties here. It would take a little while to go through all of them, so we're not going to do that. So yeah, we will now have a block in the game after we have done one thing, and that is obviously adding it to our main class. So if we come back in here, we can just do block init dot blocks dot register bus. I'm actually going to go ahead and move this before the items, just because blocks do register before items, but it doesn't matter which order you have these in. I just prefer to have them in the correct order if possible. So yeah, that's that. We will now have a block in the game. However, we have a block. That's great, but we don't have an item for the block, so we can't place the block down. We cannot have it in our hand. We cannot have it in a creative inventory because it doesn't exist as an item. It will only exist in the form of an actual placed down block, which we could only get from setBlock, the command. So the next thing we need to do is create a block item. Now, where you put this block item is up to you. It is an item, so it does make more sense to be an item in it, I would say. However, some people do it in block init because it is a block item. So it's up to you which one of these classes you put it in. I'm personally going to put it in item init because I prefer to actually keep my items in here. You can always just add comments. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have block items and then create it down here. So block items are actually slightly different from normal items, and I will show you why. So let's just create the public static final registry object. That's the exact same. However, instead of putting item in here, we want to put block item, since it's a block item. And then we can just call this example underscore block underscore item. And that can be equal to items.register. And this right here needs to be, or it doesn't need to be, but it should be the exact same name as your block in here, which I put example block. So I'm just going to copy that across, make sure it's the exact same. And then we just have a normal supplier like previously. However, instead of using a new item, we want to do a new block item. And you'll see this has two parameters. So let me just format this. There we go. So this has two parameters. And if we have a look, this requires a block and a properties. So for the block, that is basically going to be the block that we want to create this item for. So it is the block that will be placed when we create this, when we get this item. So the block that we want to place is obviously our example block. So how do we reference that? So it's pretty simple, to be honest. We just go block init dot example block. Now you may think that's it, but as you can see, there is now an error. So you cannot do that. That does not work. That throws you an error. And the reason being, if we look in our block init, this is a registry object of a block. So this is not a block right here. This is a registry object that holds a supplier of a block. So we need to find a way to go ahead and get this block. And the keyword there is get. So it's pretty simple. You just call .get. And that will go ahead, and as you can see, if you look in here, that returns you a block, and then you have the parameter that it's asked for. It's fairly simple, but it is a bit confusing for some people. You need to be careful, however, when you call this .get, since this could basically throw a null pointer exception. Since if the block is not yet registered and you try to get it, it won't exist, so it will be null, and it will throw a null pointer exception and crash your game. So you do need to be careful when you call this .get. However, if we're using it for block items, this is perfectly fine. It's in a supplier, so it all happens later anyways. The next thing is just the normal item properties. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this one from up here, right there, and paste that in. However, I'm not going to have it in the MISC tab. I'm going to have this one in the building blocks tab. Or actually, am I going to have it in the building blocks? No, I'm going to put it, yeah, I am going to have it in the building blocks. I was thinking to put it in decoration, but that's a bit strange. Item, what's going on here? No, why? Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That is it, actually. So now we need to go ahead and create the assets for this block. So the first thing we need for a block is a block state. So a block state is basically the thing that exists in the world. There is no such thing as a block in the world. Everything is a block state. And the block state is basically, it holds all the information. The block is only sort of a type. It's more of a template. A block is a template. It's a slightly confusing concept to understand, but you will get the hang of it eventually, like a lot of things in Forge. It's a bit complicated at first, but you will understand it eventually. So we need to go ahead and create a new package in our assets, and that is block states. So in here, we just need to create a file with the exact same name as our block, which was example_block.json. Here we go. And this will just create an empty file. So in here, you're probably going to want to go ahead and copy this from the description. Okay, there we go. This is our JSON. So the one in the description will probably look like, it will probably look more like this. This is probably what it will look like in the description. And you just fill this out with your mod ID and your block name, pretty much. So basically what's happening here is a block state has or can have multiple variants to it. So a great example of this is the door. So the door has, actually the door has a lot of block states, but we'll just go with the most simple one, and that is open and closed. So those are two different block states for the door. So obviously if that was the case, we would just have, it would be something like open equals true, or it would be open equals false. But obviously for the default one, we just leave this blank, and that is the default block state. And then this refers to a model, so this is the location of the block model. And obviously that's your mod ID, and then it is in the models by default, and then the block package. And from there, it will just be the example block. So let's go ahead and let's create this JSON file. So example underscore block.json. Okay, yep, that was indeed correct. So that will work perfectly fine. So we can now go ahead and close that. And the final thing we need to go ahead and do, well, not the final thing, actually that's wrong. The next thing we need to go ahead and do is the item model for the block item. So obviously it's a different item, so we need to go ahead and create a model for it. Now we can just go ahead and copy this one, right? Actually, there's no point copying it. It's fairly different. So this is just obviously going to be the same name, example block. And this is a very simple JSON. So it is literally just parent, and then this parent's off of the block. So tutorial mod :block / example underscore block. And that will just use basically the block model. And the next thing we need to go ahead and do is obviously add the texture. So I'm just going to refresh, and there we go. I have my texture in here, 16 by 16, of course. Next thing we need to go ahead and do is the lang. So that is for the block item. So item.tutorialMod.example underscore block. And obviously then just example block. There we go. Obviously make sure you have a comma here. This is a JSON, so you need to make sure everything is like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. However, when we run the game, I'm not going to run the game yet, because there is one thing you might want to go ahead and do. And that is loot tables. So by default, it will drop nothing unless you have a loot table. So we do need to go ahead and create a loot table. Okay, so the first thing I need to go ahead and do is we need to create a new folder in our source main resources. And we need to call this data. And then we want to create another folder called tutorial mod. There we go. And in tutorial mod, we're going to create another folder called loot underscore table. Loot tables. Loot table. Tables. I think tables. I think it's plural. And then we want to create another package for blocks. And just to separate this out a little bit, I'm going to create one for entities. And I'm going to also make another package here for recipes, just to space it out a little bit so it's not so clumped up. Now we're actually going to want to go ahead and create a loot table. So there is this very handy website, misodegithub.io/loot table. This will be in the description, of course, and make sure it's obviously on version 1.17. And here we can set the type to block, and we can go ahead and we should be able to use a preset right here. So if you see presets, and you can use any preset you want, edit the loot table how you want. I'm literally just going to copy Acacia planks and change it to my block. So tutorial mod :example underscore block. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we can just go ahead and copy that. Then we can go back into Eclipse. We can create a new file, which needs to be the exact same name as our block. So example underscore block.json. Of course, everything is a JSON. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Obviously, you can edit this how you like. You don't have to make it drop a block. You can make it drop different items. There's tons of little things you can go ahead and make it do, not just a basic loot table. However, this will work with any tool. So we need to go ahead and make it only work with a specific level of tool, or we can make it work with a specific level of tool. And the way we need to go ahead and do that is we need to add it to some tags. Okay, so we now want to go ahead and create another package inside data, and this is actually going to be for the Minecraft. And in here we want to go ahead and create another package, and this will be for .tags, and then another package for blocks, and then another package for mineable. And in here we need to go ahead and create a file called whatever tool type you want your block to be mineable by. So I want mine to be mineable by pickaxe, so I'm simply going to write pickaxe.json. There's also axe, hoe, and shovel. Those are the possible types. So let's go ahead and add pickaxe.json. Okay, and what we want to simply do in here is, this is a very simple JSON. So first we want replace :false, so that means it won't replace the vanilla tag, it will just add to it. And then values, which is an array, and in here we simply just want to put tutorial mod :example underscore block. So that is the block we want to make mineable by a pickaxe. And that is it for that file. The next thing we want to go ahead and do is do the harvest levels. So this is very similar. However, it does depend on what harvest level you want. So if you want a netherite harvest level, a gold harvest level, or a wood harvest level, then you need to go ahead and create another package inside data for .forge. And in here you can create another package for .tags. Okay, and in here you can create another package for your blocks again. And in there you will just put the tool. So let's say you want it to be only mineable by gold. Then you can simply create a file, and you would just simply call this needs underscore gold underscore tool.json. And this is literally just a normal tag, so it's just replace false and then values, and then you can just put your block in here. So you can say tutorial mod :example underscore block. Now obviously if you want to be using stone, iron, or diamond tool levels, then you need to put this in the Minecraft package instead of the instead of Forge. So actually I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to move this into here. That's not quite what I meant actually. Okay, let's delete that. Let's create a new file. That way we can actually change the name here. And we can just put needs underscore iron underscore tool.json. And that way we can just add it back in here. Replace :false values and then that's an array. And we literally just add our tool in here, example underscore block. Voila. And that should work. So let's actually just delete this package. We don't need that anymore. And let's go ahead and run the game. Let's see if it works. Okay, I am now in the game. It turns out I did mess one thing up right here. I mistaken it, and it actually needs to be block.tutorialmod since it is a block. I completely forgot about that. I thought it was an item, or at least I thought the name functioned as an item. We can now just F3 and T, and that will go ahead and reload the assets. And there we go, that has now reloaded and it has the right name. So when we place it down, it has the sound of stone, it has our texture, it has everything in hand as well. Now let's go ahead and test it with some pickaxes. So let's grab an iron pickaxe, let's grab a diamond shovel. Let's add a stone pickaxe. Yeah, those should be, I guess we'll have a netherite pickaxe as well. Okay, let's go into survival. Game mode survival. And I guess we're going to actually need a few more if we want to test this. So /give at s tutorial mod : example block, and let's just give ourselves 3 was actually too many, but that's fine. So let's first break it with an iron pickaxe, and as you can see it gives us our example block. Now let's try and break it with a diamond shovel. So it's going to take a little bit since obviously we set the hardness quite high. As you can see, we do not get anything from that. Now let's try with a stone pickaxe. So it's the right tool type, but it's not the right level. As you can see, we don't get anything. And with a netherite pickaxe, it should work, of course. Yeah, that works perfectly fine. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys did enjoy this tutorial. If you did, please do be sure to smash your face into that like button and subscribe. If you really enjoyed, please do be sure to share it. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.
Hey guys, I'm in New York City just hanging out.